Alright, so this is going to be part 5 to what if Deku had John's powers from Unordinary. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro. Alright, so I haven't been posting in the few days because I just been busy with a few stuff, and I just haven't had that kind of motivation to make videos. But I came back with this one just because I know you guys really like the series, and yeah. So also I would like to thank all those who watched my review on Unordinary. It's my what's it called? It was my fastest growing review that I've done so far, not just including my thoughts on series, but also my one season runs. It got like, I know it doesn't like get that many views, but it still got more views than I thought it would get. It got over like 240, something like that. So yeah, that's really impressive, especially for those type of videos, since most of my viewers don't watch me for my reviews or anything like that. So it was nice to see people actually care and watch the video. So anyways, yeah, in this one we're gonna go over the Stain arc. And a lot of people really wanted Deku to have One for All in this one. And I saw the comments, and I kind of agree with them, because they talked about how All Might would try to change Deku's personality. So that's what we're going to go with for the reasoning. So we're not going to give it to Mirio in this one. We're actually going to still give it to Deku in this one. So our story would start off like I guess a couple just after the sports festival, right? So this is just right after they got their rewards and things like that. This is when Deku would see Ida talking on the phone, and he has this really determined look on his face, and he walks out. He doesn't know what this means, but he's gonna keep that in mind, since this is very not character it's not within his character to do so, like Ida's character to be like this. So this is when All Might would take Deku aside and basically take him to the teacher's lounge so that they could talk. This is where he reveals that he's the 8th successor to All for One, or One for All. And he explains how the quirk works, and that it's able to pass down to people, and that how he was at first, he was quirkless, right? And a lot of people say that he's not quirkless because he's able to make himself buff and things like that, but All Might is quirkless. Like, they've said it multiple times in the series, so he is quirkless, right? I don't want that kind of comment to be down below, because there's gonna be I'd guarantee there's gonna be a few people that say that he's not quirkless, that he actually does have one, but he doesn't. All right, so Deku would be kind of shocked by this, and he would tell All Might, "Were you really quirkless when you were younger? You seem like you're the number one for a reason. You have all that power." And he would be like, "Young Midoriya, I was quirkless, and it was at a time where I wanted to make change. I wanted to change I wanted to be that person where everyone could rely on, and I could keep a smile to everyone and become the symbol of peace. That's all I ever wanted, right? And through the help of others, I was able to achieve my goal, become the number one. So I'm telling you this right now, Midoriya. You might think that everyone is fake and that everyone is only out there for themselves, but that's not always the case. There are going to be people that are genuine and sincere in what they do. So you need to learn that. And that's why I wanted you to have my power. I want to change how you perceive the world, because you have such an amazing ability, and yet you don't trust those around you." And this is when Deku would start to rethink how he's been living his life. And this is when All Might would continue. He would be like, "Young Midoriya, I understand you've been bullied for having a weak quirk, and I understand how that could affect someone, but again, I'm trusting you. I'll show, here's a token of my trust in you, right? I'll trust you if you could trust me, and I'll give you my power if you could do so, right?" And I think Deku at this point would be kind of staring off with this kind of sad look, and I think he would start to cry, but not as intensely as he would normally, like in the anime. I think maybe a few tears here or there, but nothing too intense. And he'd be like, all right, I'll take you up on that offer. I'll be your successor. And this is when All Might would basically tell him to eat his hair, or he'd pull out a piece of his hair and tell him to eat it. And Deku would be like, what's this about? And he would explain that you need a piece of his DNA and things like that. So Deku would try it, and All Might would tell him that in a day that, or in around the day that his powers will manifest, and he'll have the quirk. So you guys can give me some ideas on how this would affect his quirk, since One for All does kind of boost your quirk. So it could evolve to a higher point, or it could just make the increase in powers that he copied, or the normal increase that it gives the powers could be just higher, or it could give him more abilities that he could copy or something like that. So you guys can tell me down below what you want the change to be, if any. So yeah, so Deku at this point, I think that since he has a quirk, plus that he's been training with his kind of power, or he's been training with his kind of body for most of his life, I think that in this case he would be able to use around 30% of the One for All. And I think his build and his kind of his build, as well as his body, would be similar to that of John's, just with having that normal kind of green hair and green eyes, I believe. So yeah, he's similar to John in how he's built. So yeah, he would have around 30%, and that's really what he'd be able to use as max. Above that, obviously he'd get hurt. So All Might would recommend or would send this letter that he would normally send, just how he does in the anime. This would give the attention of Gran Torino. Gran Torino would then offer the internship with Deku. So Deku's recognizing the name would go to Gran Torino to take his internship. So everyone else does pretty much the same thing as they do in canon, and they would have to choose their hero names as well. I'm not sure what you could call Deku. I guess wild card, since he could have any kind of power he really wanted to. And yeah, I don't know if you guys want that as the kind of hero name, but that's what we're going to go for now. Wild card. If you guys want anything else, just tell me down below. I don't think Joker would be really that well of a hero name, but you guys can disagree with me in the comments down below. So everyone else would still have the same hero name, and we would get to the day where they actually go for their internship. Deku would arrive to Gran Torino, and Gran Torino would do the same thing as he would normally do, that being playing dead. Deku would freak out, not knowing what to do. Then once the old man would get up, he would realize that he was just playing a prank. Deku wouldn't take this too seriously and ask him if he was senile. Gran Torino would be like, I don't know what he would say. I guess he'd try to play it off as a joke, since he does like to play senile or something to that effect. And then he would check out Deku's kind of hero costume and ask him to kind of give him a One for All punch, like a full powered one. And at this point Deku would have known, because this would be a few days after he got the power, or at least a day. So Deku would have known how to use the power at this point. I think he would have a better understanding of how this power would work, One for All at least, because of how many quirks he's tried in the past. So he would have to know how to kind of use it, or he would have some understanding to it, because I believe that he'd be able to, because in the past he's had strength quirks before, and he would have to restrict himself at some points. So Deku would try to do so, and this is when Gran Torino would start dodging and start doing that kind of technique that he does, where he bounces off the walls. This is where Deku would see it, and this is where he would copy it and try to catch Gran Torino. Although his kind of I forgot what his quirk was called. I think it was called like jet legs or something. No, I'm not sure what it was called. But yeah, basically his quirk would be enhanced due to Deku's kind of power and how it works. So he'd be able to catch up. He'd be able to outpace his speed. But I think since Gran Torino's a lot more experienced, Deku wouldn't really be able to kind of catch him, or he wouldn't. It would take him a lot more effort than he would have thought, since he's very good in a mirror match. Combine that with One for All, eventually he'd be able to hit him, and Gran Torino would be really impressed and ask him how he was able to do so, or how is he able to like copy his quirk. Deku would explain his quirk, and Gran Torino would basically praise, or somewhat to that effect, praise All Might for choosing such a powerful successor, since that is a very powerful quirk to have. And because of this is after this, basically he trains him in how to kind of use One for All more effectively by giving those kind of hints with the kind of fishy cakes, just how he does in canon, by kind of implying that kind of microwave metaphor that's Deku's used to hearing. So Deku would get this idea of kind of spreading out the energy throughout his body and using a smaller percentage, because All Might would have warned him about not going full out because it might injure him. So Deku would eventually learn how to use full cowling because of this, and the kind of rest of that kind of few days, Gran Torino would be teaching him his kind of style of fighting, that being with like his quirk, just in case, even though he won't always have that quirk copied, he could still do something similar just using his physical strength. So Deku and Gran Torino would still go to Hosu, I think it's called, the town that, or the city that Saint's in currently. So they would still go to Hosu because they would be on their way to Tokyo to fight criminals, just how they were going to do in canon. But the train still gets hit by a Nomu, causing Gran Torino to go and chase after it, and Deku to follow. This is where he would see Ida basically almost dying or getting stabbed by Stain in the shoulder, just how he does in the anime. And this is where Deku would go and try to attack him. This is where Stain would dodge at first, and this is where he would see Deku basically go after his friends, or I guess quote unquote friends, because they're not really that close of friends as they were in canon, since how Deku is. So he would see him, and Deku would try to go for Ida and ask him if he was okay, as well as native, and this would basically give the impression to Stain that he was a true hero, unlike other people like the pros. And he would respect Deku a lot for doing this, and he would explain to Deku, like, I could see that you're a true hero. How about I let you go, or how about you leave and I forget this ever happened, right? But when he says this, he doesn't mean like he's gonna let Ida live, but instead basically letting Deku live, but killing Ida and native, right? Just how he was asking in the kind of canon, I guess. So Deku would be like, what are you talking about, being a true hero? And this is where Stain would basically explain his philosophy more, basically saying that a lot of heroes are fake and that they only do it for the money and glory, but not really because they should be doing it as their job, right? And by job, I don't mean like monetary, but what the right thing should be. So Deku, he starts agreeing with Stain at this point. He basically says, you're right, I completely agree with that. A lot of people, including heroes, not just including heroes, are pretty fake in this society. All they care about is just being powerful, right? But this is when Deku would start to change. But I learned something. Not everyone's like that. There are heroes like All Might that are true heroes, and he taught me a valuable lesson about how people can be, they can be sincere and can be genuine. I met, I met Aizawa as well as Gran Torino. Those are true heroes. They actually believe in what they fight for, and they don't just do it for the glory, right? And this is when Deku would start to continue his kind of like speech. He would say, the only way to get more heroes like that is to set an example, and just killing off those you disagree with isn't the right choice, because if you go violent, people aren't going to listen to you. It just makes things worse, and I've had that firsthand. I've tried to change people using force, and it just doesn't work. All they do is just resent you for it. And this is where Deku would kind of he would remember his kind of first days at UA, how he's been rude to everyone, and how people just hate him because of it. So this is when Stain would basically be like, what are you talking about? They're never going to learn. The only way for them to learn is to have the blood of the fake heroes be drench the streets, right? And this is when Deku and Stain would start to fight. Deku would not know his kind of quirk, really, and Ida would not be able to move still because of the injuries, and also because of the quirk. So I think Deku would have Gran Torino's quirk on him, since he would have seen him use it to jump out of the kind of train with the Nomu. So this is when Deku and Stain are pretty much, I wouldn't say neck to neck, because Deku would have the clear advantage in this, because not only does he have Gran Torino's quirk, but also One for All. So Deku, his kind of plan is to kind of blitz Stain, because he doesn't know what his quirk is, so he has to end this quickly. But at the same time, he has the power to do so, since he has both One for All and Gran Torino's quirk, letting him be able to bounce between the walls pretty fast, faster than Stain. And this would basically, Deku would just keep on landing hits, using his fists basically, or just punching him in the sides, and basically Stain would not be able to keep up with the speed, which would lead to his kind of defeat, with Deku kind of using a Detroit Smash at 30% and smashing him through a wall. And this is when this would be after the kind of Nomus were kind of taken care of, and this is when the rest of the heroes would show up, that being Endeavor and Gran Torino. Endeavor would be Todoroki would be with Endeavor, since Todoroki would still go with his father for his internship. So they would have all seen that Deku basically took out the hero killer, that being Stain. And this is when he would be tied up right at this point. And as this is happening, they're kind of congratulating Deku on his win. This is when the kind of Nomu with wings would fly down and pick up Deku. Deku would be kind of caught off guard because of this, but since he does have Gran Torino's quirk, and he would be able to use Endeavor's, since he has it on all the time, so he'd be able to copy that using the fire to break out of it, since he'd be able to use the fire from his hands to kind of burn the Nomu. This would cause the Nomu to let him go, and Deku would use Gran Torino's quirk to basically land on the ground softly, and Endeavor would use his kind of fire lance to shoot at the Nomu, bringing it down and killing it. Stain would still be knocked out, and they would take him to an ambulance, I guess, because he'd be, very injured. And this is where we do a little time skip at the kind of hospital the next day. It'd be Ida in the hospital, and Deku would go to visit. And this is when Deku would basically tell Ida that was a dumb decision. You shouldn't have gone against someone like that, especially when you don't know their quirk, right? And he would basically tell him that even though it was your brother, you shouldn't rush out and try to do things by yourself, because it's never going to work. You need people to help you. And this is when Ida would be like, That's very strange coming from you, Deku, or Izuku, since you never trust anyone. And this is when Deku would basically be like, yeah, I know, but I need to change, right? Someone taught me a very, very valuable lesson about trusting others and letting them support you. And this is, before they could talk any longer, this is when the kind of chief of police would come and basically tell them that the credit's going to Endeavor, since they are still students and they can't use their quirks in public because of that. And basically Endeavor's getting the credit so that they don't get in trouble. Deku would agree with this since he doesn't want to go to jail or anything like that. And yeah, this is where I'm going to end the video. So yeah, you guys can tell me what videos you want, because I'm not really sure on what to make. So yeah, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah.